I'm going to this episode without really any plan or any script because I think we just gotta talk about some stuff. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. And yeah, like I said, I'm kind of coming into this without a plan because there wasn't a whole lot of news this week in NASCAR. And, the race, I talked about a lot of my reactions to the race at Sonoma earlier this week in my last episode. So I figured today I'd take the time to just get some stuff off my chest, have a reel-to-reel with you guys about the state of the sport. I like to do that from time to time, and this week I have seen a lot of conversation. Fox just ended their portion of the season with their broadcast, so now we have NBC the rest of the year. And so a lot of people are talking about TV ratings, TV deals, all that type of stuff. And I wanted to give just again, a little updated view of my opinion on the whole matter. This tweet came out earlier today on Wednesday talking about TV ratings for Sonoma. It says here, the Sonoma race in 2006 had 8.2 million views. In 2008, 6 million views. 5.2 million 6 years ago, you can read it, 4.7. So it's a steep trend. If you look at what we had, if you look at the viewership in 2006, about 12 years ago, we have about 25% of what we did then. And those figures are obviously extremely alarming, but don't freak out too bad. It's not perfectly indicative of how most of the races have gone this year. A lot of races, pretty much every race has seen a small decline, but relatively speaking, it's none have been quite as bad as I think Sonoma's been, at least percentage-wise. So all this news coming out, all these facts and figures coming out as everyone once again spiraled up talking about why is the sport failing and everyone's giving their hot takes. I've talked about this type of stuff a lot more this year than I ever thought I would have to, and it seems like the overall NASCAR community has become extra cynical and extra critical really since the calendar flipped to 2018. I haven't seen this type of cynicism from NASCAR fans in a long time, and NASCAR fans can be pretty fickle about something. So, this means something. Ratings are down, but this is the first year in a long time where it feels like everyone is vocal about it. And so I take a step back and I think, what's changed this year? And this brings me to my most obvious point. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is not racing. For the last decade and a half, Dale Earnhardt Jr. fans have made up probably almost half of NASCAR's overall fan base. At least that's what I see at the racetracks. And so this is the first year in the post-Dale era AD, after Dale. So here in the year one AD, we've seen a lot more critical comments, a lot more cynicism overall from the NASCAR fan base. There's been a lot of talk about aero packages, tracks need to be changed, we need more short tracks, blah, 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 all this stuff, playoffs, everything. But if we think about it, the last 5 or 6 years, the aero package has been pretty lousy. You look at the last 5 or 6 years, we've had the same playoff system we basically have now. You look at the last 5 or 6 years, it's all kind of been the same. But why are fans so up in arms this season? It's because Dale Jr.'s gone. And there's a lot of fans who have kind of just, they try to keep watching the sport, and maybe the drivers that they've been trying to root for, like an Alex Bowman, like a William Byron, like a Chase Elliott, like an Eric Jones, like a Daniel Suarez, they haven't been performing maybe as well as they would hope. So those fans have started to kind of trickle away. And I can't blame him. I made a whole episode like a month or two ago about how I believe the young drivers' lack of success so far is really what's hurting NASCAR the most. In that video, I compared how Jimmy Johnson, Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon just dominated when they came into NASCAR, and I compared that with today's young guns, and gosh, the difference was staggering. And I still fully 100% believe that the biggest problem hurting NASCAR ratings right now is the fact that we've lost several superstars and have failed to have any of these young drivers fill their shoes. I don't want to dismiss any of those other issues like the aero package, like the playoffs, like the schedule, that is all stuff that should be worked on. I think a lot of fans, a decent amount of fans agree on a lot of those, not fully. Like I said, NASCAR fans are split on pretty much every issue, but those are all things that maybe need to be adjusted, and I think changes definitely are coming the next couple of years. But why are fans so upset this year? Why are there so many more vocal fans this year? Why have the ratings taken a steeper hit this year than they have the last few years? It's because Dale Earnhardt Jr. is gone. And not just Dale Earnhardt Jr., mind you. This is there's the lull that's kind of been created by Jeff Gordon's been gone a couple of years now. Tony Stewart's been gone a couple of years now. Carl Edwards has been gone a couple of years now. The list goes on. Matt Kenseth was gone, but now he's back racing part-time, still not very competitive. So ultimately, Matt Kenseth kind of feels like he's gone. And there are replacements. Chase Elliott, Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez, William Byron, Alex Bowman. No wins between anybody I just named, and most of them really don't look like, any of them really don't look like championship contenders at this point. So instead, NASCAR fans have been complaining about the lack of parity in the sport this year. We've just had Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr. probably the 3 best drivers left, if you're not counting Jimmy Johnson, who's in rough equipment right now. But really, they've just wiped the floor with everybody else. Because all those drivers I just named, like Gordon, Jr., Kenseth, you know, this was their top competition, and they're gone. So nothing's stopping Harvick and Busch and Truex from just dominating. But I'm beating around the bush. My opinion when it comes to NASCAR, when it comes to fixing their ratings, fixing the overall state of the sport, I think it starts with adding some more short tracks to the schedule, getting rid of a couple mile and a half, 2 milers that we have, and that's probably going to come around 2020. I think we also have to take a look at the aero package. I don't think that the All-Star Race aero package with restrictor plates is the long-term answer, but it might be better than what we have now, and I know NASCAR's continuing to look and experiment with something similar to that. I definitely don't want restrictor plates in the near future. Honestly, if we could get back to what we had in the 05, 06 era, that would be perfect. That seems a little unlikely, but if we can get close like we kind of were around 2014 with that aero package, that would at least be better than what we have now. As far as the playoffs are concerned, I still think the chase format that we probably had around 2010, 2011 was probably the best thing that we had at this point. I don't mind having a chase or a playoffs, but I don't think the current format's necessarily the optimal position. I think you can have a playoff format to appease new young fans while also, you know, relatively staying on the good side with old classic fans. So there's that. Stage racing should stay. I don't know why people hate stage racing so much. I get maybe there's tracks like this, the road courses probably don't need stage racing. Daytona, Talladega don't need stage racing. But every other track, I don't know why people don't like stage racing. It doesn't make any sense to me. It only rewards consistency, and with the exception of those handful of tracks I just named, it really doesn't screw up the racing at all. It just adds a couple of cautions to, you know, prevent the kind of, as some people put it, boring racing we saw at Sonoma this last week, and it breaks that up and prevents that. So I don't know why so many people, I think the majority of people actually are okay with stage racing, but the ones who aren't are so vocal about it, I just don't understand it, to be honest. Obviously it's a difference of opinion, but I don't get it. So those are all things that can be changed. Many of them will probably be changed, especially by 2020. That's going to be probably the big tipping point where we see a lot of changes for NASCAR, especially schedule and definitely probably aero-wise. But the one thing that NASCAR cannot control, and the thing that I think is most important in bringing ratings back, is we need these young drivers to do well. And right now, they're not. NASCAR's been a sport that's always been able to have household names in America. You know, not everyone watches NASCAR. NASCAR's not as big as football or basketball these days, but it used to be really big, and everyone knew, pretty much every household in America at least knew kind of who Dale Earnhardt Jr. was, who Jeff Gordon was, who Tony Stewart was, probably who Jimmy Johnson was. That was very common. But nowadays, if you go to a typical household and ask, hey, who's Kyle Larson? Nobody's gonna know. And he's probably the best of the young drivers. So that's a problem NASCAR just can't control. Young drivers are either gonna win or they're gonna take a really long time to win and fans are gonna give up on them. And that's just the way it is. I think as fans, I think it just makes sense to stick with a lot of these young guys. I think, you know, when the wins do eventually come, because they will. Chase Elliott, guys, Chase Elliott's gonna win a race. I still would, mark my words, think he's gonna win a NASCAR Cup Series championship. I wouldn't be shocked if he wins 2 or 3. But, you know, they're gonna come. And I know it takes a lot, it takes a lot of heart and a lot of struggle to sit here and continue to watch these drivers, these young guns, struggle. I mean, Bubba Wallace ran 35th at Sonoma and wrecked himself. I mean, there's so, you know, these guys just aren't ready yet. They're extremely young. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that Kyle Busch, who's in good equipment and has been in the series for 15 years, is going to dominate these guys who just got here. Doesn't take a genius. So I know it's unfair to put even more pressure on these guys, but right now the fate of the sport is honestly riding on the backs of Chase Elliott, of Kyle Larson, of Daniel Suarez, Eric Jones, Bubba Wallace, Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman. I could just keep going on. There's so many kids in the series. Makes me wonder if I made the right career choice. And I totally get that it's unfair to put that much pressure on them, but that's just the way the world of NASCAR is these days. So to tie everything together, put a nice pretty little bow on it, I am excited for NBC to start the year, because now I just talked about how NASCAR is suffering from Dale Jr., loss. This weekend at Chicagoland, Dale Jr. will be back in the booth, so maybe the fact that Dale Jr. is going to be sitting there talking during the race for 3 hours a week will bring some fans back. Hopefully, at least. I mean, I guess he can't hurt. But yeah, so that is my show. Thank you guys so much for listening, for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys heard what I had to say. Feel free, give me your opinions down in the comments. Tweet at me, at DECS Racing. Follow me on Instagram. You check out all those links down below. Of course, big thank you to our Out of the Groove Patreon sponsors. We added another one over here. So thank you guys so much for the support that you guys give me on Patreon. And thanks for everyone for watching. It really means a lot to me. We got big plans for this show, big plans for this channel. I have a W Cup Series race, a W Cup Series series actually, coming out in just a couple of weeks. So I hope you guys are excited for that, because I know I am. So I'll see you guys very soon. See you guys probably after Chicagoland this week with the new Out of the Groove. But until then, have a great weekend. See you guys.